First one, New Year's Eve, 7:30 p.m. Penn State goes to Idaho to play Boise State at home. All right, let's go to here, EJ. I'm going to let you predict this one first. Penn State or Boise State? Sorry. We're going to include spreads, by the way. So Penn State is favored by 11.5. So let's hear what you got, EJ.
Oh, wow. I got to go Penn State. Listen, Boise, you had a great run. Ashton Jeanty's running over people in the Mountain West. Guess what? Big Ten, big boy football, hog mollies in the middle. James Franklin does not lose to teams that he's got more talent than. Drew Aller. And I always ask myself when you're picking a game, and everyone should ask this, who's got the better quarterback? Who's got the better defense? If the same team has both, you should probably pick that team. You should probably pick that. Penn State. And wait, what was the spread?
11.5.
Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Dude. Vegas, why do you do this to me?
Terrible.
You make these spreads because you know no one knows what's going to happen. So here's the reality. I'm going to go Penn State to cover. No. Give me Boise. Give me Boise. Every time you're in the Fiesta Bowl, the ball bounces off a goalpost or something and it goes into somebody's hand and it's a kick six. But it's not going to be enough. Penn State to win, Boise to cover.
Can we talk about how it should go back to being the Tostitos? Like, let's bring back Tostitos. No one wants to see Verbo, dude. Insane.
We want Tostitos.
We want Tostitos.
But with lime.
There you go. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think Penn State wins this game. We talked about this, EJ. I've been so high on Penn State since that Big Ten game against Oregon, that Big Ten championship, man. I've been so critical of them the past few years, ever since James Franklin's been there, on not playing well in big games. I've talked about how they're overrated. They're overrated every single year. Michigan and Ohio State are always better than them. And then they played that game against Oregon, and I was like, damn, like they actually could have won that football game. This is a team, in my opinion, that can win the national championship. Not saying they will, but I do think they win this game. I do think Boise State covers because of Ashton Jeanty. I think he goes off in this game. The Boise State players, I think yesterday, showed up wearing, like for press and everything, the conferences, wearing shirts that said, "Don't count us out." Now listen, when teams usually do that, they get destroyed. Okay, we usually know how that goes.
Yeah, like Tennessee with the shirts off. And in Columbus. Right.
Right, exactly. But I do think they're going to come out here with Ashton Jeanty. You can't count him out. I'm curious to see him against a big front. He did play well against Oregon's front when he played them, but Penn State's on a whole nother level. You're not going to see many front fours and front sevens like this. I do think he's going to have a few big runs, though, that lead to scores. I do think it's going to be a very weird low-score game, maybe like 24-14, something like that. And I do think Penn State wins, but doesn't cover 11.5. So I'm going Boise State as well. Next game, yep, we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. Next one, we have the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Texas versus Arizona State. It's so weird that it's being played over here when both these teams are over there. This game, another one that people think it's going to be a blowout. We'll see. 81% has picked Texas. Texas is favored by 12.5. That is insane for a quarterfinal playoff game, which shows that the system's an absolute joke right now. EJ, let's hear it, man.
Well, first of all, it's absolute trash that Texas has to play Arizona State where Oregon has to play Ohio State. Mm-hmm. Like, even though we like the Big 12 is good, but why the hell does the number 3 seed have the lower rated team in the first committee? You're trash. Anyway, back to this game. Scataboo. Let me tell you something. maybe you can run that ball. Clemson was running that ball and they made a comeback. But here's the thing. I don't think Arizona State has enough defense. I do think that they played really well against Iowa State, but that's a game where when you can get downhill, and you saw Iowa State doesn't really have a great defense. When you can go downhill in Iowa State and force them to get out of their playbook, you can start to blow them out a little bit. And that's what Arizona State did. I don't think you can do that against Texas. Texas is always in the game because of their passing ability. I'm going to go Texas in this game. What's the spread?
12 and a half.
Dang,
It's a rough number.
it's a rough number. Uh give me Texas to cover in this one. I'm not very confident at all. At all. Hmm. I can definitely see this being like a 35-24 final score, and then you get screwed.
With like a late score by Arizona State. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, okay, screw that. Arizona State, give me Arizona State to cover because I think Scataboo. People are going to learn this guy's name. People are going to learn how to say Scataboo. He's going to run wild. Texas, you thought you had a great defense. You still do, but not as much. Ewers wins it. You win by 10. Arizona State covers.
So I don't feel comfortable about this game at all either, EJ, mainly for the main reason, not of Scataboo really, but because of Quinn Ewers, a guy who he is just so inconsistent as a quarterback, it's not even funny. There's games that he plays where he's really good. There's games that he plays where he's absolute garbage. And he played well. He played well in the previous game, obviously, against Clemson. But my biggest issue is when Texas can run the ball consistently, Quinn Ewers plays okay because the pressure's off of his shoulders. The holes open up, in the zones, and he just feels more comfortable. And also the pass rush kind of goes down, right, when you're able to run the ball consistently. When you can't run the ball, Quinn Ewers looks like a second string quarterback out there. He just does not look good. He looks like an Aiden Warner. And that's that. I can't trust Quinn Ewers to play consistent throughout this playoff at all. It is Arizona State. I mean, you look at the talent difference between these two teams, massive.
Massive.
Massive, and that's even more prominent in postseason games because after the whole season. I have Arizona State covering this 12.5, mainly because I can't see Quinn Ewers playing super well consistently in the play. I really can't, man. And I don't think Sark is someone who has shown that if Quinn Ewers plays bad, he puts in Manning, and I think Manning's a better quarterback. I think he has more capabilities and he could do stuff with his legs to get the run game going that Quinn Ewers cannot do. Quinn Ewers is a statue back there half the time. I have Arizona State covering, but Texas winning this football game. So good pick.
Great pick.
Good pick there. Next game, I think it's gonna be playoff game of the week at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Weird time for us. We have the Rose Bowl. Ohio State versus Oregon. A rematch of a 1-point win by Oregon in the regular season game. EJ, how you feeling, man? Rose Bowl, your home state. Let's hear it.
Man.
Oh, by the way, Ohio State favored by 2.5.
Okay. So Logan, you gotta make it to. Have you been to a Rose Bowl?
I have not.
Okay, dude, we got to go to a Rose Bowl at some point.
Got to.
It's like I've never been. So last year, my friend he's a Michigan alum. So we were like, I was born in Alabama. Let's go. It was great. I mean, now the stadium, just so everyone knows, not the fanciest stadium. They need to do some upgrades, but I can see why they haven't done the upgrades because it's like a winding hill that you got to go to get to the Rose Bowl. And I'm like, you can't even get the renovation people up this hill. How are you going to fix this stadium? The bathrooms you have to wait in line. And then the concession stands are weird. But anyway, it's like a giant high school stadium with 100,000 bleachers. It's a good stadium. It's a great environment. You see the mountains. It's a beautiful venue. But anyway, I'm going to go in this game with Ohio State to win outright and cover. I know
Woo.
everybody likes Oregon. I like Oregon too. Hell, I, they're probably national champ caliber team, undefeated. But here's the reality: Ryan Day, your job's on the line. Okay, which is crazy to me because you beat everyone except Michigan. Oregon, you're not Michigan. So that's number one. Number two, you played Ohio State on your home field and you needed a miracle. You needed to rig the rules to win. That rule got changed. You can't have 12 men on the field anymore. Will Howard is throwing the ball like precision archery out here. But that was against Tennessee. Oregon's probably a little better. I don't see how this game even is allowed to happen in the quarterfinal. It's absolute trash and a travesty. This should be at worst a semifinal game, probably the national championship game. I gotta go Ohio State because I just have a feel. I got a feeling Ohio State gets it done.
Not so fast. Not so fast. I have the Oregon Ducks winning and covering. Listen, man, here's what I got. Can Ohio State, Will Howard, Chip Kelly, can they have two great games in a row? That's the question I want to ask. We haven't seen them have two great games in a row this whole season, right? Can they do that? Is Chip Kelly going to call the game that he called you know, in the previous game, or is he going to call the game that he called against Michigan? Right, like this is what I'm talking about. Is Will Howard going to play like he played against the last game they played, or is he going to play like he played against Michigan? I don't know. That's the thing. I genuinely have no idea. I Oregon has shown me that they beat a Penn State team that played phenomenal football in the Big Ten championship, and did a great job of controlling the game for the majority of that game. Because of that, I'm going Oregon. But it would not, this Ohio State team, if they played like they did last week, 2 weeks ago, they can win the national championship, and they probably will. But I don't see them playing consistently like that. Will Howard has not been able to, and Chip Kelly has not been able to call plays consistently like he did a couple weeks ago. So I'm going Oregon. I think those are my national champions. I got to pick them. I think they win. I think they cover. I got Oregon winning the Rose Bowl. And I think it's one of those games, kind of like how it was last year with Washington and Oregon, where Washington just keep beating Oregon. Oregon cannot get over that hump. I think that's going to be Ohio State this year, where they can just not beat the Oregon Ducks. I have Oregon winning.
Good
Next
pick.
one. Yeah, well, we'll see. That's going to be one of my favorite bowl games to watch. It's going to be interesting. My second favorite bowl game.
Watch that.
Oh, got to. Second favorite bowl game. You have the All-State Sugar Bowl, one of my favorite bowl games anyway. This is one of my most nostalgic games I've watched. Notre Dame versus the Georgia Bulldogs.
Woo!
This game is going to be insane. Georgia favored by 1.5. You cannot have a lower spread than that. Georgia doesn't have their starting quarterback. EJ, let's hear it.
Everybody, college football world. Georgia versus Notre Dame. Here's the reality. I really like Notre Dame. I think this is a really great team. I like the gold. But here's the reality. Georgia. Notre Dame's going to put up a fight. Wait, who's the starting quarterback for Georgia? What's the guy's name?
Gunnar Stockton, right?
Okay, yes, Gunnar Stockton. He came in against Texas. Led him to victory. Well, actually, what's-a-majigger hand the ball off. But here's the deal. Georgia football is not quarterback centric. That is what people need to understand. Kirby Smart built his team very similar to those original Alabama teams where it doesn't rely on the quarterback. In fact, the more it relies on the quarterback, the worse the team is. So you got to go back to those Alabama teams with who is the one guy? He's like an ESPN commentator right now, Greg McElroy.
Greg, yeah.
Where you don't even remember the guy's name.
Garbage.
That's how Georgia is going to play this game. We don't need a quarterback. We just need a guy that can catch the snap and throw it on third down when we need a 7 yards. We are going to hand the ball off. We're going to go We're going to go old school Georgia. Run the ball, play action pass. Every time you pass it, Notre Dame's going to be like, well, where are they going with the ball? No film on Stockton other than that second half. Georgia's been practicing this whole. They didn't practice for Georgia Tech, so they're practicing probably for this game. Let me tell you something. I think Georgia is gonna win this game, and I think they're gonna cover. Give me Gunnar Stockton. I don't think he's related to John Stockton, but he's gonna come up with some assists in this game. Kirby Smart defense. Finally, we're gonna see some defense from Georgia against an offense. To beat Georgia, people, to beat Georgia, you got to be able to throw the ball deep and accurate. Notre Dame is not that team. Notre Dame can line up and run at you with the quarterback and be physical. That ain't going to work on Georgia, people. Georgia's going to be standing. Where do you think you're going, buddy? Instant tackle, no gain. Georgia, steamroll, Bulldogs.
Gunnar Stockton throws for 75 yards in the SEC championship game, and everyone thinks this guy is a god. He's not. He's not. And you're going to see that in this game. I think Notre Dame defense is going to show up. You got Marcus Freeman, one of the best defensive minds, going against Kirby Smart, another one of the best defensive minds in college football. This is going to be a defensive game. I'm talking 10-7. Riley Leonard, a guy that when he goes against good defenses, he struggles. We've seen that throughout his entire career, especially at Notre Dame and this season. It's really going to rely on Riley Leonard. This game is on his shoulders. We know that Georgia, let's say this, EJ. Gunnar Stockton plays his best possible game. Georgia scores maybe 24 points, right? Let's say that, 24, 27 points. That's kind of what I'm thinking if he plays his best possible game. Question is can Riley Leonard play a good, consistent game? We haven't really seen that a lot this season. He's gained momentum in the second half of the year, though. But this Notre Dame hasn't faced a team like this Georgia team, man. Texas A&M is the closest that they have. And Riley Leonard looked a little rough in that game. And they lose to NIU the week next. So I think Notre Dame, listen, I can't trust this Georgia quarterback. I do agree, like you were talking about. All you need is kind of a game manager back there at quarterback, like what Alabama did with Greg McElroy, because they had some great pieces on the outside, like Julio Jones, right? But Greg McElroy was also a senior. He was also a guy who has been in that system for 5 years, right? 4 years leading up to that point. Gunnar Stockton is, I believe, either a true freshman or a redshirt freshman. This guy doesn't know what's going on. These lights are going to be too bright. He's going to step outside and be like, what the hell's going on? He's going to hear the Notre Dame fans. They're going to be saying stuff at him he's never heard before. He ain't ready for this. I have Notre Dame winning this game. I have them covering. And I think it's, like I said, it would not surprise me if this is a 13-10 game, right? It's going to be a low-scoring game, but it's going to be gritty. It's going to be exciting. And I think it's going to be a win for the Fighting Irish.